At the engagement banquet, I was locked in a restroom cubicle, and what greeted me was a bucket of sewage. My fiancé leaned against the door, wearing a broad smile. "Miss Selena, you've never had the experience of having dirty water poured over your head in your life, have you? How does it feel?" "It's quite refreshing." I smiled even more ostentatiously than he did, but it was even more satisfying to see your beloved crying on the ground. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My fiancé's beloved was my half-sister. From the first day Teresa was brought into our home, I knew that I hated her. I often marveled at the power of the Hamilton family bloodline. If I'm blatantly bad, then Teresa is sneakily despicable. All in all, neither of us is a good person. She drugged me one moment, and the next, I could grab her by the hair and smash her head against the wall. From the age of 10 to 20, I always had the upper hand. There was no other reason. My mother was the legitimate daughter of the richest man, who was properly married into the Hamilton family. Her only daughter, me, is the recognized successor of the Hamilton family. As for Teresa, she's just a bastard born to a mistress. What did you do to her? Sure enough, Joseph's smile faded away. I looked at the person who was rarely angry in front of me. I just felt it was absurdly ridiculous. It was this person. The person I had liked for 14 years. He had added a heavy stroke of defeat to the history of my feud with that bastard. It was me who met him first, and I was his fiancé. Why did he like Teresa instead of me? I've never thought about such a stupid question. Anyway, as long as the Hamilton family doesn't fall, even if Joseph were to die, he would still be my Selena's man. I pushed Joseph aside and combed my hair in front of the mirror. I said calmly, "I drove her to the mountains and took her phone away." Poor thing. She was all dressed up but didn't even get the chance to attend the engagement banquet. Calculating the time, she might be able to walk back the day after tomorrow. But, I turned around to face Joseph and smiled brightly. If she's unlucky and encounters some small animals, she might not be able to come back. Joseph looked at me deeply for 2 seconds. "Selena, you wait." "Wait for what?" I spread my arms and twirled around in front of him. The sewage splashed onto the cuffs of his trousers along with my red skirt as I spun. "Wait for this harmless bucket of dirty water." Joseph, compared to the things I've played with Teresa, your revenge is really child's play. He ignored me and left without looking back. He left in a hurry and didn't even close the door outside the restroom. He left me looking embarrassed and exposed to the sight of the guests. I was shivering from the cold, but I still straightened my back and walked out with my head held high. The sewage dripped all the way. When I met someone who stared at me for a while, I would greet them with a polite smile. "If you keep looking, I'll gouge out your eyes." At the century-long engagement banquet of the Hamilton and Lawrence families, both the main characters left the scene. Coupled with my unique drowned rat appearance, it should be able to become a major laughingstock in City A. But I wasn't worried at all. I knew that Keith wouldn't allow the reputation of the Hamilton family to be damaged in the slightest. My father, who became wealthy by marrying the daughter of the richest man, always values face more than his life. So, the engagement banquet that should have been a farce not only became a beautiful story. Not even a single photo leaked out. As for Teresa, she was found by Joseph in the suburbs and rescued. When she was sent home, she had fallen into a high fever and coma and looked extremely pitiful. Keith always turned a blind eye to the open and covert struggles between me and Teresa. In his words, "If one can't defend against such childish tricks, they will be completely wiped out in the cutthroat business battles." Anyway, for our beloved father, as long as no one loses their life, everything is negotiable. In the end, for my despicable actions, Keith just perfunctorily punished me by confining me to my room for 3 days. I met the gaze of Teresa's mother, who wanted to tear me to pieces, and my laughter could even be heard by the security guards outside the villa. During these 3 days of being confined, there were people coming and going in Teresa's room next door, and it was quite lively. Teresa is better at pretending than me, so she naturally has better popularity at school than me. I disdain to build good relationships with these people. Anyway, even if they have great opinions of me, they still have to step aside timidly when they see me. Come to think of it, it's really difficult for these classmates who came to visit Teresa. Because of my presence, visiting the sick is like a big adventure. I was lying on the sofa in my room, bored and playing with a ring toss game console, The laughter and chatter next door were too noisy, so I casually picked up a vase and smashed it against the wall. Sure enough, it became quiet over there. After a while, the door opened. I looked up and saw that it was Joseph. He wanted to say something, but he stopped when he saw the game console in my hand. Why do you still keep this thing? This game console was given to me by Joseph when I was 7 years old. From childhood to adulthood, the expenses for my food, clothing, and various skill educations were astronomical. But I was deprived of the right to have fun. The eldest lady of the prestigious Hamilton family actually cried bitterly because she envied others who could play games. It sounds ridiculous, but in a wealthy family, it's quite normal. Joseph was an illegitimate child. At that time, he had just been brought back to the Lawrence family not long ago, and his life was miserable. He saw me staring eagerly at the toys of the children on the roadside. Without hesitation, he saved money for a year by living frugally and bought this game console. When I was a child, he was the person who treated me the best. But now, everything has changed beyond recognition. I calmly continued playing the game console without any hesitation. Because I like you. Joseph seemed to have heard a joke. Selena, don't you think that I would fall in love with someone like you, whom everyone avoids like the plague? The only thing he can use to hurt me is that he doesn't like me, but I have thousands of ways to hurt him. I sat up, smiling with my eyes curved. Does it matter who you like? Even if you like the King of Heaven, don't you still have to marry me as soon as you graduate? Joseph, don't forget that you're just a dog raised by the Lawrence family and you're not worthy of talking about love in front of me. I know Joseph too well. I know him better than anyone else in the world. His secrets and his embarrassments were all told to me by himself when we were young and accompanied each other. Now, I use the knife he gave me to mercilessly stab back. If I'm in pain, he has to be in pain too. No one should have an easy time. Sure enough, the aura around him instantly turned 8 degrees colder. Selena, you're really disgusting. Disgusting. My eyes were a bit hot, so I smiled even more forcefully. What? Teresa is very good at playing dirty tricks. Isn't she disgusting? How noble are you who like her? After all, we're all the same, and no one should look down on anyone else. Joseph looked at me coldly. So what else can you get besides disgust by playing these obvious tricks? I almost laughed out tears. I can get pleasure. It's so satisfying to see you guys hating me but unable to do anything about it. Joseph pursed his lips and turned to leave. Before leaving, he left a sentence. I really regret that I wasn't the one who poured that bucket of water. I was stunned. He wasn't the one who poured that bucket of water. But I've already sent out my gift. Won't Joseph kill me when he sees it? The day after my confinement ended, I went to school in high spirits. While others were in class, I was busy helping someone take a bath. On the rooftop, the girl was tied to a chair. Her lips were pale from the cold, and water was dripping continuously from the ends of her hair. With red eyes, she said, "Selena, you will be punished sooner or later." I looked at the half-empty bucket and threw down the water ladle in my hand. In a leisurely and cold tone, I said, "Oh, what have I done to offend you, Junior?" The girl widened her eyes in disbelief. "You're bullying me. Don't you know that?" I shook my head. "Junior, you can't just talk nonsense. Have you heard of the saying, repay a drop of kindness with a burst of spring water?" I raised the bucket and poured all the remaining water over her head. I smiled and said, "I'm repaying a kindness." After learning that Joseph didn't pour the water, I had someone retrieve the surveillance footage of the banquet hall. In the footage, a girl closely followed me into the restroom. That girl was none other than Victoria in front of me. Before this, I didn't know this person. I had only heard that there was a freshman named Victoria in her first year of university, who was beautiful and had good grades. Now, it all matches up. I don't know why she's against me, and I don't want to know either. The people who hate me can line up from Beijing to Paris. I don't mind squashing one more ant. When Joseph found me, Victoria was almost unconscious. If she wasn't tied up with ropes, she probably wouldn't even be able to sit on the chair. When Joseph saw Victoria's miserable state, his already unpleasant expression became even worse. "Selena, let her go." I couldn't help but sigh. This person really loves the plot of playing the hero to save the beauty. He saved me, then he saved Teresa, and now he wants to save Victoria. What a busy person. I obediently untied the ropes. allowing Victoria to fall off the chair and lie on the ground like a piece of ragged cloth. While wiping my hands, I casually chatted with him in a good mood. Looking at your expression, you should have received my gift. Joseph took a deep breath. If you mean the ashes by your gift, then I received them. I know that Joseph hates the Lawrence family to the core. Since his mother was killed by the older generation of the Lawrence family, he has dreamed of bringing down the Lawrence family. Over the years, he has been pretending to be obedient and acting as a lackey of the Lawrence family, all for the purpose of collecting information about the illegal activities of the Lawrence family. However, now all that information has been burned to ashes by me. Rather than being revenge, it's more out of selfishness. I can't let Joseph turn the tables. Once he gets out of the control of the Lawrence family, the only marriage contract that ties us together is likely to be voided. I looked at Joseph. There was some apology, but not much. I thought you were the one who poured the water, so it's reasonable for me to send you a fire in return as a matter of courtesy. Right, Selena. You know exactly how long I've spent. Joseph didn't finish his sentence, seemingly because he minded the presence of other people. He looked at me, his eyes dark and unclear. You've gone too far this time. I have to say that after lying low in the Lawrence family for so many years, his patience is astonishing. He was clearly furious, yet he could still maintain his nice guy persona. The words he said even gave people the illusion of being doting. I shrugged, feeling a bit helpless. You can only blame yourself for not making it clear earlier. You know how vengeful I am. Victoria, who was lying on the ground, finally managed to recover. Selena, justice may be late, but it will never be absent. You. I slapped her across the face with my backhand, interrupting her indignation. Is it your turn to speak? Hypocrites are really pitiful. They always bully the weak and envy the strong. It was clearly her who provoked me first, but now it's my fault. By comparison, my bastard sister is much cuter. Although she's stupid and bad, at least she doesn't find any high-sounding reasons. When I looked up, I saw that Joseph was about to leave. I kicked Victoria, who was stunned by my slap at my feet, and called out to Joseph, "Aren't you going to take this person away?" Joseph played with his phone and snorted softly. Humph. She's Marius's person. I've already sent him a message. He'll probably come up soon. Marius is considered Joseph's friend and is also the successor of the Nicholas family, which is the only family in City A that can rival the Hamilton family. The key point is that he's just like me. He will stop at nothing and ignore the consequences to achieve his goals. However, all along, the two of us have been one in the south of the city and the other in the north of the city. We each do our own thing, and neither of us will provoke the other, especially after he went abroad to study. I was the only one domineering in City A. Joseph suddenly smiled. Selena, guess what Marius will do to you now that you've touched his person? I couldn't help but raise my eyebrows. Why did he come back all of a sudden? If I don't come back, won't City A be handed over to others? I looked in the direction of the voice. I saw Marius Nicholas leaning against the door of the rooftop, looking at me with his narrow, amorous eyes squinted. He smiled very gently. Selena, shall we have some fun? I also smiled. How do you want to play? When Victoria saw Marius, she struggled to get up and threw herself into his arms with a stinky smell all over her. When Marius caught Victoria, he frowned slightly, almost imperceptibly, but the smile on his lips remained. He glanced at me, still looking calm and composed. What about a death race? I saw Marius's slight disgust just now and couldn't help laughing out loud. Marius, aren't you satisfied with this game? I shook my head. I like this game very much. It's just that if you want to kill me, you don't have to waste these clumsy acting skills. I glanced at Victoria in Marius's arms. This stupid woman probably doesn't even know that she's just a pawn for Marius to have a legitimate reason. The death race, as the name implies, is a life-threatening game. Two people drive their cars facing each other and step on the gas pedal hard. Whoever evades first loses. Marius doesn't like Victoria that much and isn't willing to risk his life for such a thing with me. The only reason is the piece of land that's recently up for bidding in the city. The Hamilton family is the biggest competitor of the Nicholas family. My car is parked downstairs now. Marius has plenty of opportunities to tamper with it. If something happens to the heir of the Hamilton family and the stock price drops, the Nicholas family can naturally win the bid easily. After hearing what I said, Marius smiled understandingly. So, Do you dare to come? I'll accompany you to the end. Marius and I set the location of the game on a coastal road that was under construction. Joseph still had something to be busy with. Before leaving, he whispered something to Marius. Marius had someone take Victoria to the hospital. Although Victoria was reluctant, she left obediently. She gave me a fierce glare before leaving. I smiled. Victoria had better pray that I die at Marius's hands today. Otherwise, I will definitely make her life a living hell. Before setting off, I had my subordinates check the car. Marius saw my concerns and smiled with an unclear meaning. If you're not, I don't mind having a beautiful woman in my car. In case of an accident, it would be a blessing to have someone to accompany you in death. Your corpse isn't worthy of lying beside me. I sneered and got into the car. Starting the engine. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Marius take off his coat and casually throw it into the trash can. Just thinking about the pain Victoria would feel when she learned the truth made me very happy. I stepped on the gas pedal even harder. Marius also got into the car and accelerated behind me. He overtook me in a short while. I gripped the steering wheel and overtook him from the side. Just like that, we were evenly matched and raced all the way to the appointed place. Marius got out of the car, and a hint of pleasure appeared in his wild and unrestrained eyebrows and eyes. Since it's a game, there should be a bet. Ladies first. Tell me yours. I walked up to Marius and raised my hand. My fingertips slid along the lines of the car body. I smiled and said, "Your car is nice." Marius stared at my fingers, and his eyes darkened a bit. "You want this?" I gave a soft snort as an answer, and my fingertips slid from the car body to Marius's chest. "What about you? Do you want that piece of land in the city?" I originally thought so. Marius watched with a smile as I hooked out the bomb remote control from his chest pocket. "But I've changed my mind now. I want you. Your appetite is big." I put away the remote control and gently patted Marius's face with a smile. "Talk about it after you win me." "Marius, I seem to be bound to lose. After all, I can't bear to let you die." I slightly raised my eyebrows and got back into the car. There is a telepathic connection between madmen. With just one look, you can feel the resonance of dark souls. I also can't bear to let Marius die. It's rare to find such a fun toy, and I can't break it easily. I looked up at Marius at the other end of the road. He was sitting in the car, with one hand resting on the car window and his head propped up. He silently counted 3, 2, 1, with his lips. The moment the game started, along with the prompt sound, a few words popped up on the car's display screen. Greenwood Psychiatric Hospital. I answered the phone while stepping on the gas pedal. "I'm busy." The person on the other end interrupted me. "Miss Wanda committed suicide." My mind went blank. When I came to my senses, Marius's car was already in front of me. I pursed my lips, shifted to reverse gear. I turned the car around and ended the game. On the way, I didn't release the gas pedal. It seemed that I ran many red lights. But I didn't care. Or rather, even if I killed 10,000 people, I wanted to see that woman before she died. However, when I rushed to Greenwood, I only saw a white shroud. "Miss Hamilton, we're very sorry." The emergency doctor had an apologetic look on his face. I ignored him and walked around the doctor to the bed. I lifted the white shroud. It was a face that was extremely similar to mine. It should have been bright, beautiful, and peerless, but it was old and gray, like a dying person. "Since you knew she didn't want to live, why didn't you keep an eye on her?" My voice was dry and hoarse. "We checked the items in the room every day, but she hid the sleeping pills in the unicorn doll." "That doll," the nurse beside me explained in a low voice, but her voice trailed off halfway. Everyone knew the reason well. She didn't allow anyone to touch that doll, including me, the original owner of the doll. If anyone tried to take the doll from her, she would ram into things and scream like a madwoman. "I won't share. I won't share." I don't know when the medical staff behind me left the room. Before leaving, they even kindly closed the door. I raised my hand and stroked the woman's face. It was stiff and cold. I murmured softly, "Mom, are you punishing me?" Wanda was a good mother, but only for ordinary people. For me, who had to fight in the Vanity Fair since childhood, her way of love education would only make me fail completely. That unicorn doll was given to me by her when I was in kindergarten. The little daughter of the Lee family wanted my doll. I directly broke her nose. When I got home, Wanda educated me. "Selena, Everyone likes beautiful things. You should learn to share. I nodded, not fully understanding. Later, Wanda learned that Keith had another woman outside, and even had a child about my age. She stopped looking at me and lay in bed every day, crying and laughing. She hummed an out-of-tune song. That song was the one that Keith used to play for her often. Finally, one day, I pushed the door open. With that innocent face, I smiled and said, "Mom, many people like Dad too. You should learn to share." I still remember her eyes. From confusion, to despair, and finally madness. See, no one is willing to share the things they cherish as treasures. I calmly tidied up Wanda's belongings. The closet in her room was filled with expensive and beautiful dresses, all sent by my grandfather's people. I just found it ridiculous. A person whose heart is empty, even if they eat food made of gold every day, is still as poor as a church mouse. After tidying up everything, my gaze shifted to the tattered and dirty unicorn doll on the bedside. The medicine was hidden in it piece by piece, year by year, through the small hole. But to take it out, the doll had to be ripped open. Something that's rotten is not worth keeping. I'm just returning the truth you taught me. I'm not wrong, and no one can punish me. I grabbed the unicorn doll and threw it out through the iron bars of the window. I drove directly back to the Hamilton family mansion. When I entered, Keith was sitting on the sofa, looking at the company's materials. I carried the box filled with Wanda's clothes and walked up to him. Keith glanced at me and then looked back at the materials. "You're back. Your records of running red lights have all been photographed. Wanda committed suicide." Keith didn't even raise his head. "There are more than 20 of them. Do you know how much the stock price will drop if it's exposed?" I said. "My mother is dead." Keith turned another page of the materials. "I've already sent someone to erase the records. Be more careful next time." Once someone said that I was a heartless devil. However, at this moment, I clearly felt that my heart was being torn apart. Piece by piece, a string that had been stretched tight for a long time suddenly snapped. I opened the box and threw it at Keith. The colorful dresses fluttered in the air. Some of them landed on Keith's neat iron gray suit. It was ridiculous and laughable. Just like this family. I finally couldn't control myself and laughed. As I laughed, tears streamed down my face. Keith punished me for my impoliteness. This time, he locked me in that small and dark confinement room. I would come here every time I didn't meet his expectations. Actually, I wasn't often punished, because my grades were excellent enough, and I was also ruthless enough. However, I still hated this place to the core. In the dark, I didn't know how many days had passed. I only remembered that the food sent in through the small window had changed dozens of dishes. I'm not stupid enough to imitate those people in TV dramas who would rather die than submit and go on a hunger strike to protest. I want to live beautifully and powerfully. I have to eat every bite of food with effort. Then I'll have the strength to make those I hate have nothing to eat. On the last day of my confinement, Teresa came to bring me food. I ate slowly, and she sat beside me with her chin in her hand, watching me. "Sister, do you know why Dad is so cruel to you? My mom said that she found someone to rape Wanda. Guess, whose child are you?" Seeing that I was silent, Teresa thought she had finally gained the upper hand. She became even more arrogant. "Eat quickly. Today is the CFA exam. Your driver's license has been confiscated, and Dad asked me to take you there. By the way, you have to take a shower before we go. Don't dirty my new car." I had prepared for this exam for a long time and couldn't afford to delay it. So I casually splashed the remaining hot soup on her face. "I'm afraid you also need to take a shower." Teresa covered her face and screamed. She wanted to call the doctor but was afraid of being punished for not completing the task assigned by Keith. She had to run back to her room to take a cold shower. When the two of us arrived at the examination site looking bright and beautiful, the exam was about to start. I looked at the increasingly blurred scene in front of me and shook my head. "Teresa, aren't you bored? You've only known how to drug people for all these years." Teresa blinked and smiled innocently. "What are you talking about? Sister, I don't understand. By the way, work hard for the exam. If you can't even pass this kind of certificate exam, you'll probably be locked in the dark room again when you go back." I will definitely not go back to that place again. I tried my best to stay awake and sneered. "Save those words for yourself. You useless person who didn't even pass the second level." When I came out of the examination room, I could barely walk. In a trance, I saw Marius standing not far away, leaning against the car. He smiled and waved at me. Long time no see. I bit my lip and maintained a normal walking posture as I came up to him. I raised a smile. If I remember correctly, you had already stopped before I turned around that day. That's right. Marius's gaze fell on my red dress, and his smile deepened. In that case, move aside and don't get in the way of me driving my new car. I raised my hand to push Marius away, but he grabbed my hand and pressed me against the car door. He leaned closer to me, and his hand slowly moved down. I furrowed my brows. Don't be stupid. His aggressive breath blew against my ear. The only thing you need to control is me. The wound on my leg was covered by his warm palm through a layer of pantyhose. He took his hand out and rubbed the blood on my lips, smearing it. Sure enough, you're still the most suitable with red lips. In order to stay awake. Before entering the examination room, I used a utility knife to slash a wound on my leg. The wound was hidden under my skirt, and the blood seeped into the black pantyhose. I thought no one would find out. I've only heard that you're ruthless to others. I didn't expect you to be so ruthless to yourself. I ignored him. I wiped the blood off my lips with the back of my hand and rummaged through my bag for lipstick. I used his car window as a mirror and outlined and applied lipstick on my lips. Was it the drug your dear sister gave you? Why does she always play such cheap tricks? I couldn't help but agree. That's true. Seeing that I had responded, a smile appeared on Marius's extremely handsome face. How about I scratch her face? I put the lipstick back in my bag and pursed my lips. I smiled and said, no need. I'll do it myself. He smiled, and when he spoke again, he offered to drive me home. I was glad to have a free driver and didn't refuse. After getting in the car, I reported an address and was about to close my eyes and rest when I heard him say, let's go to the hospital first. I still have something to do. Let's go to the hospital first. You're so noisy. Let's go to the hospital first. I opened my eyes and raised my hand to pull the car door. Marius quickly locked the car door and stopped the car. Fine. Let's go do your thing first. But you need to have your leg bandaged. After saying that, he rummaged through the first aid kit in the car and without asking, he took my leg and placed it on his. I couldn't help but twist my body to face him following his movement. I felt his fingertips wandering on my leg, and a tingling sensation came over me. I furrowed my brows. Marius, you're crossing the line. He increased the strength of his hand. I felt the pain and punched his shoulder. Let go. He didn't let go, and his voice was sinister. Just thinking that such a beautiful leg will have a scar makes me want to kill your sister. This is my leg. Why are you so indignant? Didn't I tell you? I want you. I took my leg back and smiled indifferently. I originally wanted to remind him that he lost the bet, but then I changed my mind and said, if you can pass my assessment, I might consider it. I have a lot of people to deal with recently, and I can't spare the time. Marius smiled. Do you want me to deal with Victoria? I also smiled. I have to admit that Marius suits my taste very much. After finishing the business, Marius sent me home. I picked up a fruit knife and started looking for someone, but I found that Teresa and her mother were both gone. I asked the servant and learned that Keith had gone abroad on business, and Teresa had insisted on going with him for fun. So, the whole family left happily. Teresa thought that since she knew I wasn't Keith's biological child, she could manipulate me at will. As a result, she drugged me but was afraid of my revenge and fled to her safe haven. But can she avoid me forever? I put down the knife and laughed silently. What's more, she would never have thought. The truth she thought she knew wasn't the truth at all. Instead, it was a great gift for me. When she brought me food, she mocked me for not understanding Keith and thought my silence was a sign of defeat. But she didn't know how much effort I had to put in to hold back my laughter. I may not understand Keith, but I understand Wanda too well. If I wasn't Keith's flesh and blood, I wouldn't have been able to come into this world at all. I wonder what Keith will be like when he finds out all this. However, to completely crush Keith, there is still a crucial step. Over the years, the reason why Keith has been able to dominate in City A is inseparable from the support of Wanda's family. I drove to Wanda's family home, facing Wanda's father. I smiled and said, Grandpa, you didn't even come to your mother's funeral. Why are you here now? Wanda's father took a sip of the hot tea in his cup and wasn't very enthusiastic. I couldn't really blame him for not liking me. Not only had I had little contact with him since I was a child, but I was also the last straw that drove his daughter crazy. Now that Wanda had died in a psychiatric hospital, it was already kind of him not to make me be buried with her. However, I still wore that smile on my face. I was locked up by my dad. As soon as I was released, I rushed over to see you. Humph. Don't think I don't know what you're up to. I'm too lazy to get involved in the messy affairs of your family. I obediently refilled the old man's teacup and said softly, Mom died so disgracefully. Now that her body hasn't even grown cold. Dad has already taken his mistress and her daughter abroad for a vacation. Can you really swallow this anger? The old man smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Selena, I know Keith went abroad to discuss business. You don't need to exaggerate things here. I am indeed Wanda's father, but I'm also a businessman. Now that I've already lost one daughter, I can't afford to lose my business as well. With the current strength of the Hamilton family, I got impatient with listening to the old man's talk about business and interrupted him. What if I said I could take my father's place? Over the years, besides studying and tormenting Teresa, I had spent almost all my time helping to manage company affairs and attending banquets. All of this was for the day when I could take over the company. But now, I wanted to move that day forward a bit. The old man was stunned for a while and then sighed. You're nothing like Wanda. You're smart, ruthless, and ambitious. If Wanda could have been like you, maybe she wouldn't have died. However, I'm already half in the grave. Why should I take this risk with you? I picked up the freshly poured tea and drank it all in one gulp. I'm afraid you have to take this risk, Grandpa, whether you want to or not. A few days later, when Keith came back home with Teresa and her mother, I had already been waiting in the living room for a long time. Keith acted as if nothing had happened. I've already checked your CFA results. There's still room for improvement. I'll keep working hard. I smiled and handed him the paternity test report. Here's a document for you to take a look at. After the exam, I took Keith's hair and went to the doctor he trusted the most. That doctor had an affair with Teresa's mother. As early as the year I was born, he had made a fake paternity test report. I used the utility knife that had cut my thigh and demanded that the doctor do another test. This time, it had to be real. Keith looked at the document and, with trembling hands, dialed the doctor's number. I had already sent people to keep watch over the doctor. He didn't dare to lie and had to tell the truth exactly as it was. I raised my eyebrows and watched as Keith's face gradually lost its color. I kindly reminded him, if you still don't believe it, there are so many hospitals in City A. You can go and take another test wherever you like. Keith's voice was shaking. So, you are my child. And Wanda didn't betray me. Not only did she not betray you, but even the mistress you thought you had was someone this poisonous woman found to rape her. I looked into Keith's grief-stricken eyes and pressed on. You too. One didn't dare to say, and the other didn't dare to ask. You really are a perfect match. Mr. Hamilton, who could cover the sky with one hand, was kept in the dark for 20 years. It's really laughable. Do you regret it? It's too late. Wanda is already dead. Save your confession for hell. Everyone standing here today is a murderer. Of course, that included myself as well. Keith, with trembling hands, tried to grab me. I shook him off. By the way, I have another gift for you. I threw the dismissal letter, which was led by Wanda's father and from the board of directors, to Keith. Now, the person in charge of the Hamilton Consortium is me. My dear father, thank you for your untiring teachings over the years. Is your daughter excellent enough now? Does she meet your expectations? Keith fell silent, his eyes blank and not knowing what he was looking at. He seemed to have aged instantly. I didn't pay any more attention to Keith. Instead, I turned around and grabbed the stunned Teresa. I pressed her to the ground. I took out a fruit knife and slowly and deeply slashed at her face. This is for drugging me before the exam. The blade was so sharp that Teresa didn't feel anything until the blood slowly seeped out. She broke free from me in horror. She howled and covered her face, then threw herself into her mother's arms. However, her mother was already in a panic. The woman sat down on the ground, not understanding how things could have turned out like this when everything had been fine before. She kept repeating, I should have killed this scourge long ago. I should have killed. The joy I had expected didn't come. I only felt an unprecedented sense of restlessness and emptiness. I waved my hand at the people standing by. indicating for them to take the others away. Those were all people of the old master of the Hamilton family. Handling the aftermath of these people was also included in the agreement between me and him. The old master had been involved in both the black and white worlds for so many years, and he was very clean-handed. In the future, whether these relatives of mine were alive or dead, maimed or insane, they wouldn't get in my way anymore. Come to think of it, I had Joseph to thank for making Wanda's father do these things for me. Some of the evidence he had collected was related to both the Hamilton and Wanda families. If any of that evidence was leaked, it could turn the old master's century-old foundation into nothing. Thinking of Joseph, my eyes and brows softened a bit. I had burned his information, but I had kept a copy for myself. If he found out, he would probably be so angry that he would get sick. I raised my head and slowly looked around this messy and silent home. I walked out without the slightest bit of reluctance. Now, there was only one last step left. This last step was really not easy to take. As the night grew darker, I drove slowly and aimlessly through the streets. The car behind me kept honking its horn. I took out the pistol that I had placed in the car. I stopped the car, got out, and walked over to the other person's car. He rolled down the car window and was about to swear. I raised my hand and pressed the gun against his forehead, without the slightest hesitation. As I pulled the trigger, I made a sound with my mouth. Boom. I watched as he wet his pants in fear. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Coward. Go home and change your pants. I threw that toy gun into his car through the window and got back into my own car. That's when I saw that there were more than a dozen missed calls on my phone. They were all from Joseph. I didn't go to find him, but he actually came to me on his own. I took out a cigarette, put it in my mouth, and called him back. Less than a second after I dialed, the call was connected. His voice came from the other end. Selena, where are you? I flicked the lighter and stared at the blue-yellow flame. It took me a while to remember to reply. What? Do you want to seek justice for Teresa? When Joseph heard my vague voice, he was silent for a few seconds. He asked, do you want to come to Moonlight and have a couple of drinks? I grinned. Since someone was begging me to drag him along, what was there to hesitate about? After arriving at Moonlight, the waiter skillfully led me to a private room. I pushed open the door, and Marius's voice came to my ears through the noisy electronic music. I remember you used to get along well with Selena. Why did it turn out like this later? I stood by the door and heard Joseph, who had his back to me, say this. When I was a kid, I saw that her mother was crazy and felt sorry for her. Later, I found out that she was crazy too. But now, as you've heard, her family. A smile flashed across Marius's lips. If my mood had been confused just now, then now, it was extreme anger. I kicked open the door and rushed in. I casually picked up a bottle of red wine and smashed it against the table. I bent down and pointed the sharp broken piece at Joseph's neck. Joseph, I'm warning you. You can hate me or love me, but I will never allow you to pity me. Before I could plunge the sharp object into his neck, Joseph grabbed my wrist. He pulled my hand and moved the broken bottle a little further away. He stared at me, in a trance. I seemed to see the little boy who had saved money to buy me a game console. Selena, calm down. I know you're not feeling well right now. Wait for me. After I bring down the Lawrence family, I'll take you away. What about Teresa? Don't you love her anymore? I was met with silence. In an instant, I understood everything. I looked at Joseph's clear and gentle eyes and brows in front of me. I had never expected that one day I would find this face so strange. It turned out that he had never fallen in love with anyone. He just liked to wander among relationships, using his false kindness to watch us fight until we were battered and bruised. All of this was to satisfy his pitiful inferiority complex. Well, I should have thought of it earlier. How could a flower that grew in the dark really be pure white? But he shouldn't have come to stain the last piece of pure land in my heart. I seemed to lose my strength, and the bottle in my hand fell to the ground and shattered with a crash. I heard a voice coming out of my mouth. Joseph, do you want to go for a drive? Marius, who was leaning against the backrest of the sofa beside us, had been watching the scene for a long time. When he heard this, he suddenly spoke up. The car you're driving today is the one I tampered with. Right. I gave Marius a cold look. Sometimes, being too much in tune with someone wasn't a good thing either. He casually took a sip of his wine and looked at Joseph. I suggest you don't go. I planted a bomb in her car. and now she has the remote control in her hand. Joseph stared at me, as if trying to tell from my eyes whether what Marius said was true or false. I didn't answer the question in his eyes but just continued to ask. I'll ask you again. Do you want to go for a drive? Joseph didn't say yes, nor did he say no. He just stared at me intently, as if looking for something. A feeling of restlessness welled up in my heart. What else was there to look for? The me and him from back then were long gone. I got up and was about to leave when Marius blocked my way, his eyes smiling. You're so heartless. There's still one person here. Why don't you ask me? I sneered and walked around him. I wouldn't believe Marius's act of pretending to be affectionate. We were just treating each other as fun toys. There was no need to put on an act. Marius followed me again, and there was actually a hint of pleading in his words. Selena, ask me. I gave him an impatient glance. So, do you dare to come? What a waste of time. He was such a person who put interests first, was ruthless and shrewd. How could he possibly? I'll accompany you to the end, he answered with a smile, without the slightest hesitation. My heart skipped a beat. This was the same sentence I had answered him with before. I drove at full speed on the coastal road. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Joseph's car closely following behind. The car's display screen kept showing his incoming calls. Neither Marius nor I paid any attention to them. Marius, who was sitting in the passenger seat, had a smile on his face. So, now that you know Joseph was only nice to you before because he pitied you, do you still like him? I snorted coldly. Don't think I don't know that you deliberately led him to say those words. He didn't ask earlier or later. He just had to ask right when I pushed the door open. He really played his cards well. Marius didn't feel the slightest bit of embarrassment at being exposed. So what? He wasn't worthy of your love in the first place. Then who is worthy? Marius suddenly leaned close to my ear, and his hand gently stroked my back. Naturally, it's me. His low and hoarse voice was like a poppy. We're the same kind of people. We're equally bad, equally crazy, and equally brave. I felt some kind of irresistible force surging in my heart. Marius kept talking. He told me how he had played with Victoria's feelings, how he had drugged Victoria and thrown her into a place full of debauchery. He said that Victoria seemed to have been ruined and couldn't even take care of herself now. I listened quietly and didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy. My words were full of mockery. If she hadn't overestimated herself and gone against me, she wouldn't have ended up like this. Marius nodded in agreement. I forgot to tell you. It was me who told her to pour that bucket of water on you at the engagement banquet. I suddenly laughed. So, at first, you really just wanted that piece of land in the city? Yes. It's a pity that the paparazzi you arranged was taken care of by Keith. Marius sneered contemptuously. A useless person. Even if he didn't die at the hands of your father, he would have died at my hands. He suddenly leaned close to me, as if sharing a secret. His warm breath blew against my ear. However, I fell in love with you earlier than you might think. Do you know? You were incredibly beautiful when you said that if you keep looking, I'll gouge out your eyes. An indescribable sense of pleasure echoed in my chest. I almost wanted to laugh out loud. I originally thought it was a pity to drag you to die with me, but now it seems that you'll die a worthy death. Marius lowered his eyes and played with the remote control in his hand. So, did I pass the assessment? Now, is my corpse worthy of lying beside you? I reached behind me and touched my empty pocket. When did you take it? It was probably when I was talking about the same kind of people. Marius was about to say something else, but he was annoyed by the incoming call notification. He answered the phone. Joseph's slightly anxious voice came from the other end. Selena, don't do anything stupid. I smiled softly. Joseph, I've sworn to make all those who killed my mother pay the price. And among those people, that includes me as well. I hung up the phone. I also cut off the falsehood between Joseph and me, where even our hearts were filled with lies. I had once thought that he was the only one who was truly good to me. Later, I realized that the only one who was truly good to me had already died in that prison where even the iron bars of the window were wrapped with cotton layers. I missed her so much. In the quiet car, I heard Marius ask, "Are you ready?" I looked at the fishbelly white light appearing in the sky. It was like the light that could disappear at any moment in the dark night. Hazy, yet bright. I smiled and nodded. As he pressed the button, we both said the word, boom, at the same time. The whole world was as magnificent as a fleeting firework. It was like the end of this grand performance. Or perhaps, it was the prologue of a new story. Who could really tell? The world is inherently chaotic. And love and sin sing the same song. Extra chapter. The little girl hugged the doll in her arms, blinked her big eyes, and asked, and then of course all the bad guys died. She shook her head and said in confusion, who said that bad guys have to die? What exactly is a good guy? And what is a bad guy? I was at a loss for words and didn't know how to answer. I replied randomly, those who abide by the law, are hardworking and kind, and treat others sincerely are good guys. But everyone will die in the end. Does that mean everyone is a bad guy? I pressed her fluffy head and tucked her into the quilt. From the age of 10 to 20, I always had the upper hand. The fluffy head poked out again. Mom, I don't want them to die. Can't that bomb also be a toy? In the dim yellow light, I looked at the unicorn doll placed on the bedside. It had been exposed to wind and rain, was dirty and tattered, and its belly was covered with dense stitches. But no one knew whether the cotton inside was black or white, or what shape it was. I smiled and gently tapped the girl's forehead. Rose Nicholas, if you don't go to sleep obediently, I'll call your dad over.